Hello and welcome to another episode of the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. I'm Philippa Haynes of Insight 101.
And I'm Mark Lee of Bookmark Lee. This is our 38th episode now and our 32nd interview.
Yeah, we're just showing off now, aren't we? Through our podcast, we aim to showcase and celebrate successful accountants who've been running their own practice for a good few years and who we think can inspire and encourage accountants in practice around the UK.
We ask our guests to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned along the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. And if you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Philippa or me. We're now taking bookings for the end of January and into February 2025.
Yeah, I've just done a booking for the 22nd of January, so It's madness, isn't it? Anyway, today's podcast is sponsored by Pinnacle, a trusted outsourcing partner with well over 120 clients in the UK and Ireland. Pinnacle CEO Mayank Pandya is a chartered accountant based in London, and he has a passion to encourage innovation and excellence in the accounting profession. Pinnacle has offices in the UK and offshore delivery centres across India, employing over 250 high-quality staff. With a strong focus on quality assurance, Pinnacle has helped many UK accounting firms to scale their capacity and operations. So, to find out more, please visit www.pinnacleoss.co.uk. You'll also find the link online wherever you're listening to this podcast.
You say all that so much better than I ever did.
It feels long.
Well, it was lovely seeing Mayank at the end, both of us at the Bookkeepers Summit run by the ICB earlier this week.
It was.
Anyway, today we are delighted to introduce Claire Flinders of Mojo Accounting and its trading name of Mojo Bookkeeping. She also runs the Mojo Business Club. Based in Leicester, Claire started her bookkeeping and accounting practice a little over 6 years ago after spending 25 years in the corporate world. She built the practice up to be bigger than she wanted and has since scaled it back. The practice focuses on providing outsourced finance team services. And through her community, the Mojo Business Club, she connects others on a similar journey and of course offers bookkeeping with help from Xero, QuickBooks and Sage. She's dual qualified and is a member of both CIMA and the AAT.
That's right. Okay, welcome, Claire, after that big introduction. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we've missed?
I think that was everything, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you for that, Mark.
Brilliant. Okay, well, as you know, for those who listen frequently, we keep the podcast to around 30 minutes, and we do that by focusing on a few key questions. And sometimes we don't even get round to them. We're sort of getting quite proficient now. But Mark, let's see if we can start with the first one and see if we can stay on track.
Okay. Well, we tend to cover everything, even if we don't get the questions.
Yeah, we do.
Right. Anyway, it's a sort of combination question there. What attracted you to start up your own practice, and how did you go about doing that? You might want to go back as to how you got into accounting as well.
Well, yes. I mean, I really fell into accounting, I think, like a lot of people do. I was at the point where I'd got really good grades at school, thinking about staying on at school, and actually I'd kind of reached a point where I just wanted to leave and do something else. And I actually saw in the newspaper, because that's how long ago it was, an advert for under the YTS scheme for a trainee accountant at the local Leicestershire County Council. So I applied, and then the kind of rest was history, really. So I joined as an apprentice. Really good scheme at the county council where, you know, you went to college one day a week and then you got experience in a lot of the different finance departments within the council. And then I was there for around 7 years. And then at that point, I was starting to study CIMA. And it was at that point I thought, well, I've got to make a choice here. Do I continue in local government, or do I make the leap and go into industry? And obviously studying CIMA, it was like kind of a no-brainer, really. I sort of took the leap, went into industry, and then sort of worked in industry for the next sort of 20 odd years, various companies from Pirelli Tyres, Santander, and the last company I worked for was Horace Components. So all management accounting type roles, budgeting, forecasting, commercial stuff, pricing, that kind of thing. Had touched on tax, but not really done any tax at all in practice until I decided to set up on my own.
What prompted you to set up on your own?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I think like a lot of people, I was getting a bit disillusioned with the whole corporate world. But actually, I was going through some personal issues. I was getting a divorce. There was also a big restructure going on in the place that I worked. And I actually ended up having sort of a mini meltdown at work one day. I was kind of just sat at my desk and just couldn't physically move from my desk, and I didn't really know what was happening. So it was during the period of time where I was actually on the sick for several months. I actually met a school mom and dropping my daughter at school, and she said that she was running her own practice from home, and did I want to go and work for her?
Oh, wow.
And so, it was something I'd always sort of toyed with. It was working in a practice, but obviously once you're in the corporate world, sometimes it's very difficult to kind of, get yourself out of that. And so luckily she offered me some part-time work to go and work for her, and the rest is history. I kind of started to work for her, really loved the fact that you could really feel that you were helping people, that contact with people that you have on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month basis, and really helping them to, achieve success in their business, rather than being in a big corporate, machine where all you're really doing is helping a big company get richer and the rest of it. So that's what I did. So I started working for her at part-time, and then at the same time as that, I started to build up my own client base on the side.
And how did you do that? Where did you get your clients from?
So a combination of things. I started to do some networking. I mean, social media wasn't used as much as it is now. It's really come on in the last sort of, this was sort of around 10 years ago. So I started off sort of part-time employed, part-time self-employed. So did a bit of networking, got to know other accountants and bookkeepers. And what else did I do? The other thing I did was I was kind of keeping an eye out on Indeed, because at that time the work that I was mainly doing was bookkeeping. So I used to look on Indeed for people that were advertising for bookkeepers, and then if there was a company name rather than an agency, I'd actually contact the company and ask if they'd considered outsourcing it rather than having an employee. So I did pick up a couple of clients that way.
Very good.
Very clever,
and then it kind of just continued from there. Once you get, to know a client and they like and trust you, and then realise that you're actually a qualified accountant, there's a lot of confusion out there in terms of what an accountant does and the different types of accountants, but they automatically assume as an accountant that you know all about tax. So they're like, oh, you're an accountant, can you do my tax as well then if you're also doing my bookkeeping? So it's kind of like, oh, why not? So I kind of just, kind of self-taught really on that side of things. I had done some tax work for the accountant who I'd started to work for. But then I sort of had a letter that dropped on my doorstep really from a local accountant that was retiring and had about 25 clients that he wanted to move on. And so I ended up going through a fee sale with him. And that's where it kind of really then sort of, it sort of escalated the tax side of my business, if you like, and because that was all year-end limited company and self-assessment work. And that's at the point where I then needed to take on my first employee to kind of help with the bookkeeping side, so that I could concentrate on servicing the tax and the client work.
It's
and
interesting
it kind of grew from there.
So I usually get to ask the question about, so what have you learned along the way? And I mean, we know that you got up to having 7 members of staff, and then you, as we said in the introduction, you suddenly decided you were stopping and reconsidering. So tell us a bit about that, because that seems to be the biggest thing that you've probably learned across the journey, unless there's something else, I suspect breakdown was quite a big one too.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think you kind of get swept along with the hype of it all, especially going to networking events and things, and it's too easy to compare yourself to other accountants in the industry as well who are a bit more established. So I just kind of did get swept away along with it all, and I didn't really sit back and look at the type of business that I really wanted for me, and B, the sorts of clients that I wanted to work with. So I was kind of saying yes to anyone and everyone. I was pricing way too low because the accountant that I'd inherited that block of fees from was already at a low fee. And so I kind of took that as sort of the industry norm. But obviously he didn't have any staff, any other overheads or anything like that. So, pricing way too low, taking on all the wrong types of clients, not really sitting back and looking at what I really wanted. So, and also taking on the wrong staff. Because I'd been an apprentice, I always wanted to give back and give someone else the chance. And at one point, I ended up with 2 apprentices, which, again, unless you are geared up with the right level of structure to help those apprentices, it can be quite an investment and quite a sort of, not a drain on your time, but, your time's not best spent there always. So I'd got to a point basically where I just burnt myself out. I'd built this business which was a bit of my own little corporate world again, and my own little beast, and I wasn't having the flexibility that I really wanted. I wanted to be able to work from home more. I wanted to be able to sort of pick my daughter up from college and do things, with my family and stuff like that. And I just felt tied to my office and to my team. And I think one of the mistakes I did make is that I didn't bring in another qualified person soon enough. So the rest of it kind of, the book all stopped with me, really. And so at that point, I thought, I need to do something about this. So talking to other accountants, I managed to kind of move on my tax-related work, and I decided to niche back to where I started my business, which was primarily bookkeeping, management accounts and forecasting, because that's the reason I set up the business in the first place. And I decided to work with a couple of other accountants to move on my tax clients to them. And it wasn't easy. It was really difficult. Probably the second most difficult thing that I'd done in terms of scaling it all back. Fortunately, I had one member of staff who moved to work for one of the accountants because they were primarily wanting to do the tax side of it. Another one actually went to work for for a client because they realised they needed more support in-house. And then other staff just naturally kind of left and moved on. And so now it's me, one other employee, and then I outsource some work to another couple of bookkeepers. We all work from home. We work remotely. We do visit clients on site as well. But I just feel so much happier. It's gone back to being the business that I wanted it to be when I first started.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and actually, in terms of how much I'm personally earning from the business, I'm actually earning more than I was before because I haven't got all the overheads, all the staff, and all of the hassle. So
thank you so much for sharing that, Claire.
Yeah.
It is remarkable the amount of pressure that accountants are under to grow. And then when you look at what they're making from the business, you go, well, actually, you could possibly be making more if you didn't have as many clients and as many staff, and you wouldn't have as much hassle. Yeah. I mean, I don't, when I'm mentoring clients, I'm not encouraging them to shrink their practices, but I'm very rarely pushing them to grow them beyond what they're comfortable with, and always to talk through what it is they want to do. And I think, the care that you had for the staff that you realised you didn't need anymore also comes at cost. And I think, what you've gone back to, when you say you've gone back to your roots, that's as much, you have the SEMA qualification and AAT as well. And that gives you certain skills. And in my experience, SEMA qualified accountants who focus on the skill set they've got invariably be better and more successful and are happier with their lot. So where you've arrived doesn't surprise me. It's a shame for you that you had to have it wasn't a wholly pleasant journey to get there.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
I think it's all part of the journey. If I hadn't have done that and I hadn't delved into sort of the, the tax and compliance side, I'd have probably always wondered and always thought, oh, well, what if, and that. So it's just part of it, isn't it?
Yeah. So what were the difficulties scaling back? Because obviously there's the staff issue, which is obviously a big issue because suddenly you feel like you're letting everybody down. And was there other stuff going on? And when was this? How long ago was it?
This was almost 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's when I first bumped into you at Accountex, I think that was.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So, well, obviously one of the main difficulties is the clients and some of the relationships you've got with the clients. I was fortunate that I did find 2 accountants that I trusted and liked, and it helped that one of my team members was moving to work for one of the accountants that was taking over, so that kind of smoothed the way in terms of relationships and consistency. So that eased the way. But naturally, not everybody's going to be happy because they come to you because they like you and trust you, and then you have the whole issue of well, why should I choose them now? I want to kind of choose my own accountant. But in the main, it went relatively smoothly. There was a few hiccups along the way with certain clients obviously will naturally drop out because they do want that choice, and that's absolutely fair. But yeah, in the main, it just needed to be done, and I think that's what kept me going. Is like, well, I could see the end in sight, and I could see what my business would like at the end. So that kind of what drove me on, really.
And it's given you space. Sorry, it's given you space now for the bookkeeping club, which again we kind of need to find out more about. But Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, thanks. I was just keen to go back to the acquisition that you did when you took on the clients from this retiring guy. Did you feel, when you look back at it, did you feel that you did a fair deal and that you got your money back, or did you pay more than was fair when you think about it now?
Well, let's just say that I didn't do enough due diligence when I this was my first experience of anything like this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the guy that I purchased the fees from didn't really want to retire, so he was still involved for quite some time after the sale had gone through. And because he was a very old school type accountant, and he would drive round and say that he just happened to drive by a client, and he would pop in, and then he would start questioning, oh, how are you getting on with Claire? Is she okay? And also what happened was, at the point that I bought the fees from him, I hadn't got enough income to be VAT registered because it was very early stages. And so one of his sort of prerequisites was that he wanted an accountant that wasn't VAT registered, because obviously a lot of his clients weren't VAT registered.
Yep.
But very quickly, once I bought his fees and then my business started to grow, very quickly I was over the VAT threshold. Yep. So I had that hurdle to get over. And actually what happened with this accountant was he actually then found another accountant to work with and was contacting all the clients to try and steal the clients back, saying that I've now got another accountant. So I was quite naive because I was very trusting of us as an accounting industry, and the majority of the people that I've met are very fair and upfront, I hope, but you just don't know. And I didn't do enough due diligence on that. So, we had rules and stuff like that. So that was another thing that I'd had, which...
Had you paid up front then, rather than spreading it over a couple of years?
No, there were stage payments, but it was after the final payment. So I think the final payment was sort of 12 months later.
Yeah.
But it was even after that. It was still sort of dabbling and getting involved and all the rest of it. So fortunately, by that time, everyone was more than happy with me, and he'd caused the clients a few problems in the past anyway because of the type of personality that he was. So they were I think I only lost one or two, and one of those.
Go on, sorry, carry on.
And one of those was because his wife didn't want them to have a female accountant, which says more about the client, isn't it?
So what is due diligence then, Claire? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people listening into this, or when they listen back, will kind of be shouting at the screen going, you needed to do that. But what would you have done differently then? What is that due diligence?
I think I should have spoken to some of the clients more, or one or two of the clients maybe, if it had allowed me to, just to get some feedback directly from them, or some contacts of the accountant. Obviously I could see all of the fees and everything on paper and what type of business it was and everything, and that was all fine, but it was more dealing with the personality, and all the clients were absolutely fine. There was no clients that I didn't enjoy working with, really. There's a few that were more troublesome than others, like everything. But in this instance, it was not the clients I was taking over, it was the person I was taking them from. So it's a bit of a difficult one. I'm not really sure, going through that again. And because it was, as I say, more of an old school accountant, not really having a profile on social media, or not really very, prevalent in the accounting world, you hadn't got that sort of backup to go to, really.
There wasn't much to find out about them.
No.
I think it's a really good observation for buying a block of fees. It's not just the quality of the fees and the work that's been done, whether the fees are recurring or not. It's also the arrangements with your predecessor, and are they going to let go? Are they going to remain involved? Making sure that they're restricted in terms of what they're able to do, checking with you, etc. It's quite common for payments to be staged over in 3 installments over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, within 2 years, you will have lost any that you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And the type of person that I can tell you are, I imagine that only people who are that much older and liked his old school approach would even have considered leaving you once they'd experienced working with you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Mark.
No, definitely. No, I would say the same. So tell us a bit about this bookkeeping club then. I mean, how's that working with the other part, the accounting part? Just tell us a bit about that then.
Well, there's two things really. I think because when I started on this journey, I'd actually worked for other accountants and bookkeepers. There was an accounting firm that I worked for, the one that I mentioned before, that I met kind of at the school gates. And then there was another sort of bookkeeping firm that I also worked for part-time in the early days. And because of that, I'd kind of built up quite a network already of accountants and bookkeepers sort of in Leicester and Leicestershire. And I think once I decided I was going to make the leap and not do tax and compliance and go back to focusing more on bookkeeping and forecasting, that I was contacted by quite a few of my so-called competitors in the accounting world to say, oh, if you're doing bookkeeping, then there's a chance we can now work together, because there's some bookkeeping work, we haven't got capacity for, or we don't want to do, or whatever it was. So I built up quite a good network and I was never the sort of accountant that would try to steal work from another accountant. So if I was doing the bookkeeping work and there was another accountant doing the year end, I never actively went after that work, and vice versa. If I was doing the year end and another bookkeeper was doing the bookkeeping, again, I'd never actively try and steal that work away from them. So I kind of got quite a good network of bookkeepers and accountants who trusted me, I think. And so I set up the Leicester bookkeeping group as like a support network for bookkeepers. There are some accountants that come along to that as well, and we do have other guests that come along as well. We have FDs and we have people from insolvency companies and people who come as guests. But it's really, the main reason for that is a support network in the local area. We meet for once a month for lunch, and we also have a WhatsApp group. And it's been really great because we, if anyone's going through a particularly tough time, we've had a few recently where, people have had issues with clients that they've had to deal with, straight on the WhatsApp group, and everyone will give them support. We can moan about it at the lunch, and or moan about the tough week we've had or not. And things like, when we went to the Zero Refresh in Birmingham last week, a few of us all went together and things like that. So it's been really great to have a support network in the same industry, rather than go to, and I also, to be honest, see it as a networking event. We do pass work to other people, and now I've got a trusted network of people that I trust, that if I can't, I have clients that are, leads that I can't, don't have the capacity for, then I'll go straight to this group, and I know that there'll be someone there I'll trust that will take it over. We had an issue recently where one of the larger bookkeeping firms in the group has had some sort of staffing issues, and so a couple of us stepped in to cover while that was all going on and things like that. So it's been really great for that sort of thing.
I love it. And is that separate to the Mojo Business Club?
It is, yeah. Mojo Business Club is separate because that's focused more on new startup businesses. So one of the things that I did love when I was doing year-end tax and self-assessment is I did love people who were just starting out, who would get sent to me because I was a bit friendlier and a bit probably cheaper than some of the other accountancy practices, and I did really love that. So that's been set up to try and because there's millions of people who do their own tax return and never engage with an accountant. So the idea of this group is to give them a bit of a helping hand. If they do want to continue doing their own tax return, then, I'll sort of provide the guidance. But if they don't, obviously I've got a network of accountants that I can then refer to for them to then say, okay, these are the people that I recommend. So that's kind of more focused on the client side, whereas obviously the bookkeeping group is.
So that's quite a unique. I mean, because we ask about unique, and that's probably that's one side where you're sort of looking after people within the kind of accounting and bookkeeping space, but you're also looking after those clients, and not necessarily your clients, but people who are who have their own businesses. How do you manage all of that? That's quite a lot of work to do.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, there's still some work to do, I would say, on getting the business club going properly. I haven't really run any proper sort of what I want to do is do like training and mentoring in that space. But it's taking time to sort of just build up the right audience and make sure that the right people are coming into that space. So that's very early stages. So yeah, my main business at the moment is obviously on the bookkeeping and accounting side, but I'd very much like to support those small business owners a bit more.
I love that, and I can echo. It takes time to build up a mentoring service. It takes time to build up I run the sole practice club, and it's not it's not full yet because I don't spend as much time promoting it as I could do. So I can relate to that. These things are never easy. What would you say your clients say makes you unique in terms of the services you're providing to regular clients?
I think it's just because I still have it now, even though I'm clearly not in the, doing the tax and compliance side. People find me approachable, I think, and know that they can ask me anything without feeling silly or feeling like they're going to be given a load of jargon back that they don't understand. And I think that's the main, during COVID, for example, I would sit and listen to the announcement from government on what were the latest grants and things coming out, and immediately I'd be on Facebook sort of giving people the information in layman's terms, and afterwards people came back to me and said, oh Claire, and even now some people say, oh, we saw your posts on Facebook and we're really appreciative of it because we understood your posts rather than trying to listen to what the government was saying. So it's that kind of thing, I think, that probably makes me a bit different.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, I guess we could talk about this all day because there are quite a few strands or strings to your bow, but sadly we're getting close. But I love the story about you kind of stopping and reconsidering what you're doing, and I don't want to say downscaling because that sounds negative, but just sort of reconfiguring what you really wanted out of life. And I think that
Yeah.
really comes across, that you've learned over that, all of the time you've been working, that you sound, the way that you talk about it, I think is very, that I can feel the foundations there. It's kind of feel very solid suddenly, which I think is really, really lovely. There are going to be people who are listening who really like what you've said. How can they best find out more about you?
Well, connect with me on LinkedIn. Obviously, it's Claire Flinders ACMA with my SEMA on the end. If they want to find out more about the bookkeeping group that I run, again, they can message me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best. We don't have like a group on social media or anything like that. For Mojo Business Club, I have a page on LinkedIn, but there's also a group on Facebook that you can look up and can join. If you are, a small business owner who needs a bit of help with the financials. But I'm on all the platforms really. As Mojo Business Club, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram.
Brilliant.
I'm all over the place. I probably need to focus a little bit more, and then something might happen with it.
I'm a great one for focusing online activity rather than trying to be everywhere, but each to their own. But thanks very much for that, Claire. Philip, how can listeners find out more about you and your business, Insight 101?
Well, I think we've heard from Claire about the agonies that you can go through if you don't stop and really think about what you want to do and kind of set up your business in the way that works for you. And that's really what I do. I talk about brand, but ultimately it's about what are you going to be offering and how do you talk about it. Now, if you are feeling like that is a problem for you, or you really want to think more strategically about where you're going, then come and find me. I'm on LinkedIn, but I also have a website, insight101.co.uk, and that will help you just to begin to think about your story, your brand, and where you want to go with it. And Mark, tell us a little bit about the Soul Practice Club.
Thank you.
And everything else you do.
Soul Practice Club is for sole practitioner accountants running your own practices, and with I would say plenty of experience. One of our newest members actually has been in practice for years, but he's just starting his own practice now. But he's still got something to contribute because he's looking at things from a different perspective. And we meet once a month online, Tuesday morning, second Tuesday of the month. It will be the second Thursday of the month, I think, in the new year when I go on grandparent duty on Tuesdays. But online everywhere you can find me as Bookmark Lee. Even my business card is a bookmark, just to distinguish me from all the others. When I'm not running the club or looking after my grandchildren, I'm mentoring sole practitioner accountants who are a bit frustrated, perhaps overwhelmed, want someone to counsel them and support them and assist them with decision makings and confirm they're making the right decisions, which is invariably what I do. Occasionally I help point them in the right direction, and they seem to love me for it, which I'm deeply grateful for, because I do it to get paid, but yes, but I do it because I love it. Love helping and supporting sole practitioner accountants. I just encourage anybody listening to the podcast to reach out and connect with me and with Philippa on LinkedIn, whether or not you need our services now or maybe in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, just before we go, our thanks again to the sponsor of this episode, Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. Do check out their website and let their CEO, Mayank, know that you heard about Pinnacle Global on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. He would be thrilled, and so would we. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the love online, subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or YouTube, and let us have your feedback too. And lots of people came up to me at the ICB Summit on Monday talking about it, so that's fantastic.
I love it, and I had a couple asking me for details of the podcast after I put up the slide that talked about it and highlighted your skills and services as well. And I did have a look, actually. Sadly, we've got very few reviews on Apple Podcasts or YouTube at the moment, so if you are listening, well, obviously you're listening, but if you feel so inclined, do please pop along and add a 5-star review if you feel it's deserved, because that will help us to reach a wider audience. And do also please contact Philippa or myself if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast, or if there's someone you'd like to recommend that we interview. For now, though, thanks so much again to Claire Flinders and to my brilliant co-host, Philippa. Until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else that we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye. Bye.